Okay, we're recording now.
Okay, thank you. So welcome to the second day of the 157th ISOC board meeting. And today we are starting with two reports from the Chapters Advisory Council and from the IETF. And we were basically inviting both of you, especially because since you are, basically new in your roles, I was basically looking forward to meeting you, but also to get the whole board to meet you. I have met obviously both of you, but I think it's good that the whole board basically gets to meet you, have a chance to discuss, ask questions, and all that. So thanks a lot for coming. Usually we invite several chairs to give these reports, but these times we prioritize both of you because, as I said, you were new in the role. So without further ado, let's move with the Chapter Advisory Council report. Pierre-Jean, and it was last time we met you was in Montreal face-to-face. Many things have changed since then.
Yes, thank you, Gonzalo. Indeed, few things have changed, and I'm happy to meet you all here virtually. I hope you can hear me pretty well.
Loud and clear.
Perfect. So thank you first for inviting me, and it's a pleasure to be there, and I look forward to give you a few hints on what we are doing and what we plan to do, and I'll be happy to answer your questions if there are any. And Kevin, would you mind sharing the few slides? So I'll try to keep that quick, so I won't waste your time longer. Or too long, but a few updates on what we're doing on the advisory council. So you can move to the next slide, please, Kevin. A few points. So I'll go over the steering committee members of the coming year, basics of the advice development and what will keep going from the previous year, and the work of the steering committee and the CHAC, so the advisory council, and what we'll be doing in the coming month. If you can move to the next one, please. Thank you. Basics. So about the team, the steering committee members. So we're nine people elected from the 124 chapters, 6 regionals and 3 non-geographicals. That doesn't change from previous years. And this year, I will be the chair of this committee with few people returning, and I'm following up from Eduardo, which I'm taking this opportunity to thank for his work for the previous years, and he is still helping us if we need help. So a big thank to him and to the previous people. For the regional representative, we'll have for this year Wadzana and Lovu from the Zimbabwe chapter, representing the African region, who will be also the vice chair of the committee. Sadish Babu, who I guess you may all know because he's there for a few years and helping us in the transition and continuity, who will act as the secretary and representing the Asia Pacific region. Roberto Zambrana from the Bolivia chapters, representing the Latin American region. Latin American and Caribbean region, sorry. Nabil Boukhalid from the Lebanon chapter, representing the Middle East region, and Jordi Domingo from the Catalonia chapter, representing Europe. And then for the 3 non-geographical representatives, we will have Adebunmi Akimbo from the Nigeria chapter, Herman Fajardo from the Colombia chapter, and Anna Amumo from the Namibia chapter. So, and myself from the Canada Quebec chapters. To work with my colleagues on a few topics. 5 out of the 9 are returning members. So we were already there in the committee last year. So we will keep on doing some work we started last year. So it helps to keep some continuity in the work and advice we try to work on. Our terms will end as usual by the end of the year. So if you can move to the next slide, please. Thank you. So a quick recap. I guess most of you are familiar with the Chapter Advisory Council and Steering Committee and Advice Development, but quick recap, we will keep going on the same way previous year worked. So identifying and getting topics and matters of concerns from the chapter communities, and through small ad hoc working groups and some discussion within the CHAC steering committee, trying to develop advices, recommendations, ideas, solutions to tackle those matters and topics. And of course, this is a both-way work. So if the Board of Trustees and if you all, or if you, Gonzalo, as the chair of the Board of Trustees, have any topics you would like us to work on or to provide the recommendations, of course, we're here to do so, and to get the chapter communities hints to work on that. Process is quite straightforward. We try to reach consensus. So the idea is not necessarily to have a vote each time, but if need be, there are some vote that can be taken. But the idea is to have a full consensus from chapters and to speak as one voice for chapters. Next slide, please. So a few updates on the work we did last year, and that I guess you are aware because it was approved by the board in February 10th, if I'm not mistaken on the date, was the amendment of the Chapter Advisory Council Charter, which needed to be a bit updated given that it was functioning for a few years. And following from that, we are now working on the rules and procedures amendment. So we will try to help. Actually, this is more about the internal functioning of the Chapter Advisory Council to help us work more efficiently and to provide more useful resource and work for our chapters and recommendations to the Board of Trustees and to the staff, which we're working with too, of course. Next slide, please. Sorry. A few topics we will work on. We are already working on, and we'll work in the coming weeks and months. The opt-in, opt-out is something that was brought by last year a steering committee. We're still trying to work on. The basic idea is that when people join ISOC, we want to keep them in the loop of receiving communications and being able to communicate with them. So we're working on this topic and we'll provide some recommendations and solutions. We're working with the ISOC staff on this point too, because it's somehow related to some legal and some technical aspects in Member Nova, the platform chapters are using and members are using. Another topics will be multiple chapters per country. We're glad to have 2 new chapters that were chartered about 10 days ago, the Gabon chapter and Hyderabad chapters in India. And we're also trying to currently, in some cases, we have few mutable chapters within a country. So we're discussing on how to frame this and have established a more formal process to informing people, informing members, and working with the chapters within the countries to kind of coordinate and work together. And from this topic came another problem that I guess, Gonzalo, you received the letter a few days ago about access to funds for chapters. I'm not here talking about amount of money by itself, but for some chapters, it's hard to have the right to receive funds from ISOC, let's say from few programs. So we will try to work on that. And we received the letters from few chapters about 10 days ago, as I mentioned, to actually, for the CHAC steering committee to take this problem on and work and find solutions on that. So this was a quick update and presentation. I'm open to any questions you may have. I think I'm not out of time.
Absolutely. Thank you for the presentation. That was useful. And indeed, I mean, it was great, all the work that Eduardo was doing. So I'm glad that he is supporting you in the transition and all that. Yes, we have received a letter from a few chapters, and we are looking into that. We understand that's a problem, and we are looking into potential solutions. So we will get back to you guys and the chapters that send the letter as soon as we have an answer. So yeah, rest assured that we haven't dropped the ball on that. We are on top of that. Anyway, you were presenting the structure and you know, your ideas on processes and stuff like that. I think that's useful. Any idea on the topics you want to tackle or you plan to look at? You know, part of the work that chapters have been doing in the past as well, well, led to the creation of the governance reform working group. And as you know, we just appointed Hans-Peter as the co-chair. So that part is taken care of, hopefully, with community discussions and all that. Do you have any other topics we should be prepare, or you want to give us a heads up or anything, or is still too early for that?
I guess within the chat we also discussed the reform, so we're following the group and
excellent,
and so we're part of the list. Even though I'm not posting to it, I'm reading every email, so I'm glad and congratulations for the new co-chairs and work, heavy work to come forward. So we will probably within the chat discuss that, and I mean, not probably, but we will of course discuss that, and try to be involved in that discussions because it's our job too.
Yeah,
to
exactly.
have chapters. So for a few topics, we're having few chapters giving us some topics to talk or to work on, but it's kind of early to work on this one. So I don't want to give those topics if it doesn't go along. But I'll be happy to provide them once we're in more advanced discussions. Currently, topics or concerns for chapters are accessing funds for a few chapters. And we also had a request to work on transparency, meaning giving accessibility to the CHAC and to the CHAC steering committee work. So we will work on the transparency part to have resources available more easily, perhaps through the ISOC website or through other part. And we're also working with the ISOC staff on a few topics to, for example, to work on the, perhaps, you know, we have multiple discussion lists within ISOC. Some might be more targeted for all chapter leaders, for all the community, and then maybe there needs some cleanup on that to be addressed. So we'll currently in the coming weeks we will work on that part. For other topics, it will come by, and I'd say in the coming months.
Perfect. From our side, something that we were discussing with Eduardo several times was basically to increase the engagement of chapters in the chapter advisory council. I think it's important for the CHAC to represent the community, to have basically, you know, a high level of engagement. So that's something that I see you are already thinking of, and I think that's really good. But yeah, when you have new topics, just let us know. Yeah, we like surprises as long as they are good surprises. So
we can surprise you with good and bad surprises, but we will surprise.
I know that will be the case. Okay, any floor requests? Any questions? John, please.
Thank. I appreciate, you know, this. You know, it looks like you're doing a good job of keeping the chat going ahead. And I think I'm not the only person who has been concerned that in the past, sometimes the stuff we got from the chat seemed like more the pet project of one or two individuals than having broad support from the chapters. You know, and I'm sure there's a lot of issues that are broadly interesting to the chapters. You know, and the more you can show that this is something that, you know, chapters in multiple continents and multiple countries care about, you know, the more useful the advice will be, and the more frankly, the more likely we are to act on it. So I'm looking forward to that.
Thank you. Okay, but you know, thanks a lot for joining. As I said, this was a very good presentation for us, also to get to, you know, meet you, some of us that were in Montreal, and for the new trustees to meet you for the first time probably. And let's keep in touch. Anything you need from us, just reach out and we will take it from there.
Thank you all for inviting me. And if there are any topics, as I mentioned, you would like us to work on, feel free to reach out. And then I'll be happy to work on with my fellows colleagues.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Excellent. So the next agenda topic is basically to receive a report from Lars. And as I said, Lars is the new IETF chair. He started like less than a week ago, or exactly 1 week ago. So Lars, please. And again, thanks for joining.
Thanks for having me. Yeah, I sent a written report, as Alyssa sort of told me that she used to do. Unfortunately, the yearly report for 2020 isn't quite ready yet. I was planning on sending that, but instead you have the pre-IETF 110 report in your minutes, which is public. So I wasn't gonna spend a lot of time on what's in that report, since we can deal with it during Q&A. I sort of thought I'd talk a little bit about some other things that are happening in the IETF that are
that'd be even better. Yeah, thank you.
Part of the official report, which is sort of a little bit boring, frankly. So as you said, Ray Gonzalo, I took over last Wednesday, so I'm in the job a little bit less than a week. And as you might imagine, due to COVID, the handover wasn't quite as well. It's never easy, but it was harder maybe than normal, because we couldn't travel as part of the handover, and we couldn't actually meet in person. So Alyssa and I have been having sort of regular Zoom calls for the last couple of weeks, but I don't think that was possible to get the same level of exchange as you could normally have. So in other words, I'm sort of still transitioning. So forgive me if I'm not covering stuff that you want me to cover. Just ask me about it. So IETF 110 happened last week, and one thing that's it was a good meeting in the sense that there were no tools issues. Participation was unaffected. Sort of COVID doesn't seem to affect the virtual meetings very much. And the working groups were busy meeting to the degree that we need to actually add a 9th track, which caused some discussion whether that is splitting the community too much, but there was too much demand for meeting time to do anything else. So that's all sort of positive signs. We gathered some data on participation in times of COVID, and all the metrics that we looked at sort of seem to indicate that participation is luckily pretty much unaffected, with the one exception of sort of new work. So if we look at the submission rate of individual internet drafts, which are sort of the first input to the standards process, we do see a decline of like 15 to 20% compared to normal years, and that's slightly worrisome, because it's sort of the beginning of the pipeline that is sort of struggling a little bit. Hopefully, I should also say that, and then sort of starting new working groups, the BOF phase, the Birds of a Feather phase, also seems to be a little bit affected. We seem to have less proposals, and it seems to be a little bit harder to reach consensus in a virtual meeting format compared to the physical one, where you can then, talk in the hallways and in the bars and go to dinner, and community consensus can form easier than it can in a Zoom session. The good news is that we are hoping to definitely meet in person again in Madrid, which would be in the fall. The decision for IETF 111 in San Francisco in July hasn't been formally made yet. I think Jay Daly, our executive director, will make that decision in a few weeks. Personally, I would be very surprised if you had anything other than a fully virtual meeting, given that the COVID situation doesn't seem to rapidly improve, and there's not that much time until July. But it's Jay's decision to make, and he'll inform the community of that. But I think we're all hoping that Madrid in November is a realistic chance to meet again. Since I mentioned Jay, so the IETF Administration LLC, there's some ongoings. One thing that's happening is that I hear pretty close to hiring a fundraiser that is specifically hired to increase the IETF endowment. They hopefully have an easy start, given the generous matching program that was set up between the Internet Society and the IETF. So thank you very much again for that. I think that we will try to maximize it as much as we can. I've already talked to a bunch of the RIRs and ICANN and other folks, but the fundraiser specifically, I think, is intended to look outside the tech sector maybe, and other sources of money that would help grow the endowment. And it's a long-term effort, but it's an important one. The second role we're filling at the moment is a contract programmer or a staff programmer. We had a long-time volunteer that then turned contractor, who sort of informed us that he's retiring very soon. And he had been maintaining a bunch of our tools. partially on a contract basis, partially as a volunteer. And so we need to sort of relatively urgently migrate them over to IETF maintained servers and get support for them. So there's some work to do, and it's sort of overloading the resources we have at the moment for that. The other thing that I'm taking advantage of this, thanks to COVID, one of the few good things is that there's not a lot of activities happening at the moment in terms of outreach or newcomers orientation or leadership training. It's all virtual. There's some that's going on, but it's significantly reduced compared to previous years. And the IETF had a lot of activities in that space, some of which were done together with ISOC. For example, the fellows programs that you have or had were tied into that. The newcomers parts were shared, and so were some of the technical presentations. But we're trying to figure out if we can emphasize those parts that are working well, and maybe stop doing some things that are very difficult to organize but don't seem to pay off. One difficulty specifically here, as I learned, is that we don't actually have a whole lot of data about these programs. So we can't really tell very easily, what worked and what didn't work. The newcomers, for example, were polled occasionally on their experiences and whether they found what we offer to them useful, but there's no sort of history of regularly doing this. So we don't really know if we're on a good trend or a bad trend or any trend at all. So that, I think, we need to urgently address as we go back to physical meetings specifically, because we would really like to focus the few volunteer cycles we have comparatively for these important activities on things that actually make a difference. Finally, sort of the IETF has recently rediscovered, thankfully, the topic of diversity in participants. There was a discussion already a few years back that then fizzled out a little bit as the people who were driving it maybe rotated out of leadership positions. But there's a renewed interest now. The first thing we're doing, there's a general industry discussion at the moment on changing some of the technical terminology to be more inclusive. I know that IEEE and 3GPP have already done things here. The IETF was early with getting started, but since we are a volunteer organization and consensus-based, we are maybe a bit slower than some of the other standards bodies, but we are going to start a working group in a general area that is chartered to give some guidance on why it's congruent with the core values of the IETF to be inclusive in the language we use and not exclude people. The second related term is that, so this is the tip of the spear for diversity. The broader activities that we're looking at is what else we can do to make it easier for diverse participants to participate in the IETF. At the moment, some people are doing what I would call a taxonomy document that tries to look at different aspects and how we could improve them. I would personally hope that we can not spend too much time on being very broad here and list all the possible things, but pick a few efforts that look worthwhile doing and just try and do them. And specifically, I would sort of try and maybe start with diversity that we already have, be it in terms of gender participation or geographic diversity. I know there's things we're doing with ISOC on regional hubs or outreach programs. So if we could strengthen diversity where we already have it, rather than trying to generate diversity in areas where we don't have it, I think that would be a very worthwhile starting point for us. But as always, since it's a consensus-driven activity, we have to sort of have the discussion in the community, and that tends to take a little bit longer than in some other organizations that are a bit more top-down oriented. And I think that's sort of all I maybe want to talk about for now, and then I'm open to questions if we have some time still.
Yeah, thank you, Lars. I mean, that was really useful to summarize a bit, what's going on. And yeah, I mean, with respect to the meeting locations and dates, as you know, I mean, we were planning to collocate our board meetings after this with both San Francisco and Madrid. So Jason already told us that it's highly unlikely that we will be going to San Francisco, but it would be nice to be able to go to Madrid if that happens. So we'll see.
Yeah, there's a timeline that's published. according to which Jay evaluates whether physical meetings or hybrid meetings are possible, and also the criteria that he's using are open. So for, if I remember correctly, for the July meeting, we should hear probably sometime in April, I would think.
Okay.
And for the Madrid meeting, you would then hear, 2 to 3 months before Madrid at the latest, I think, if it's possible.
Excellent. Yeah, thank you, Lars. Any questions for Lars or comments from anyone? I see everything.
Just want to say thank you very much for taking on the role. We're looking forward to seeing all you can do.
Thanks, Dan.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks. I mean, that's always, as you said, this is a volunteer organization, and that role actually, I mean, involves spending a lot of cycles on the community. So that's always very much appreciated. Absolutely. Okay, your last chance to ask something to Lars. Going once, going twice. Okay, Lars, but thanks a lot again for joining, and we will keep in touch. As you know, I mean, I will be off the board in summer, but I mean, whoever is chairing the board will probably reach out to you, because it's good to get your reports periodically, and having you every now and then actually join these calls is also helpful. So yeah, we'll take it from there.
Yeah, happy to join anytime. Thank you.
Thank you, Lars. Yeah, have a good day. Bye-bye. Okay, good. So that covered point number 19 on the agenda. And then just to note that we received actually more reports from the IAB, from the LLC, so from Miria and Jason respectively, from the IETF Trust, from Glenn, and also from OMAC, because basically we got everything there. I was going to invite the OMAC co-chairs as well, because last time it was their first time basically presenting and meeting us, but I thought it was better to give priority to basically the CHAC and the IETF this time, because they were really new in their roles. So now I'm glad that the whole board got to meet them. Okay, so having said that, the next point on the agenda, it's number 22, which is George is going to give us a report on the ISOC nominations committee, so the ISOC NomCom. George, the floor is yours.
Thank you. This is a very straightforward report, and it's been included in the board book. We had a nominations committee of 7 people, 5 board, 2 non-board. We adhered to the schedule that is constructed for us in the bylaws and supervised by Kevin. We had, let's see, I think it was 29 applicants total. I'm working from memory here. I didn't call up the report. For mostly 22, 13 and 9, 13 for the chapters, 1 vacancy, which now turns out to be 2 vacancies in effect, and 9 for the organizational seats. We filtered on the basis of appropriateness and ability to meet the criteria for the board meetings, and we ended up with, I believe, 8 chapter candidates and 9 chapter candidates and 3 organizational candidates. We convinced one of the people who applied for a chapter candidacy to switch to the organizational side, so we ended up with 4 organizational candidates for 2 members, for 2 slots. We interviewed by Zoom. Most of the committee members were on most of the interviews, and we recorded so that they could, if they missed the in-person interview, they could look at the recording. We had not much trouble coming to a rough consensus of the slots, 5 for chapters, 4 every candidate essentially who was considered appropriate for the organizational slots was.
We lost George.
What, sir?
We lost you for 10 or 15 seconds.
Oh, I'm sorry. What was the last thing you heard?
The number of slots for the two positions.
Yeah, we had 5 candidates for the for the chapter slots, 4 for the organizational slots. We got 2 petition candidates, 1 for the organizational slate, which didn't go anywhere, and 1 Glenn McKnight, previous trustee, who got the requisite number of signatures and is now on the chapter slate. So we're ending up with 6 people on the chapter slate, 4 people on the organizational slate, and we're very happy to pass on the process to Maimuna now as chair of the elections committee. That's all I think I really need to say.
Excellent. Yeah. Thank you, George. No, that was very useful to understand how the slates were put together. Excellent. Any questions to George? Okay.
I will say
yes, George.
I'm really concerned about the degree of enthusiasm for participating in these processes. The fact that we only got 3 organizational candidates, and by the way, 1 of them applied independent. He wasn't even an organizational candidate put forward. He wanted to be on the committee, and we approached the organization, the OMAC, and said, "Are you willing to take him as your representative on an informal basis?" And they said yes. So it's discouraging from the point of view of wanting to be a participant in these processes and wanting to be in the leadership structure of the organization. Thanks.
Yeah. I mean, that's true. I mean, nevertheless, to also, I mean, provide the counter argument for the, to being complete, for completeness, is that many people that are interested in doing good things for ISOC and doing, mission-driven work, they are not interested in the governance, right? They don't want to be in the leadership. They just want to do stuff. So in that sense, that's not bad per se either. But I agree with you that generating more enthusiasm would be a good thing. I can agree with that. Okay, but anyway, we're gonna pass the resolution to accept George's report. So I need, yes, Kevin?
Walid's using his hand.
Yeah, my virtual hand.
Yeah, so I said several times that if you guys request the floor on the chat, I will see it. If you start using the hands, it's a bit more difficult for me, because I have a very small screen today. So Walid, please.
Apologies for that.
No problem.
No, basically, just to add to what George said, it's been a straightforward experience. One thing that I noticed that we may have struggled with is understanding how we could apply the recommendations of earlier, NOMCOMs, because we wanted to progress. We don't want to go back, and so I hope that the diversity would be good enough for us to choose, a more broad, let's say, set of candidates. The thing that I've noticed is that the gender issue came about, and that is something that we would like to maybe reflect on more and more in the future. And that's something that keeps on haunting us once and again. And one other thing is that we do realize the different structures of the 2 groups, chapters and organizations. And I don't want this dichotomy to continue on. I mean, I'd like to have more of a broader, common, general theme to it, is that we have participants from both worlds. So I always encourage this swap from one basket to the other, as long as it has a meaningful reason. So that's one thing I thought I'd bring up. Thank you.
Thank you, Walid. Thanks. Yeah, Walid has been involved also in the previous years, so he has a lot of experience with this process. Thanks. Any other questions? You can send floor requests to the chat. I don't know what's going on today, but everyone is using the other functionality. As I said, if I had a bigger screen, it wouldn't be a big deal. But with this small screen, if I turn that, I cannot even see the chat. So, okay, good. So now I would like to pass the resolution to accept the report that George presented.
I move.
So, okay, so Mike moves. Laura seconds. Yes, Laura seconds. Okay, if Maimuna can turn on the video, we can do raise of hands. Otherwise, we can do a roll call. Okay, good. So then we will do show of hands, sorry. So we're gonna be voting as usual. Yes, abstain, and no. So yes votes, please raise your hands. Okay, abstentions. So you can lower your hand. Abstentions. No votes? Okay, so the resolution passes unanimously with 11 votes, because nowadays we are 11 trustees. Okay, thank you. And thanks again, George. Maimuna, the ball is on your court now. So good luck with the elections and all the process. And thanks for handling that again.
I will have more, I hope I will get more enthusiasm for the voting than the process of NOMCOM.
Yeah, exactly. People should get, excited about that. Thank you, Maimuna. Okay, so moving on, the next item on the agenda is actually the CEO's contract extension. And as you know, basically we hire Andrew roughly like 3 years ago, and in the contract we had a option to extend if both parties agreed for 2 more years. So this is what we are executing, and you saw the contract and the amendment just to basically make an assessment. So any discussion on that? Any comments before we move to pass the resolution? We're gonna be passing by roll call, obviously. Okay, so just to say that we've been actually very happy with Andrew's leadership. He has gotten a lot done. The restructuring of ISOC is something that we've been talking about quite a lot, and we were very happy with the 2020 report to see that actually the new structure is yielding some of the results we wanted, specifically being more impact oriented and all that. So I think it's been really good to see ISOC basically progress under Andrew's leadership. Okay, so I need someone to move.
So move.
Okay, Pepper moves, and Richard seconds. Okay, and I will go for roll call in the order that I see you guys on my screen. So you have 3 options as usual: yes, no, abstention. I will start with Maimuna. Maimuna, please. Maimuna, you can vote yes, no, or abstain.
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
Thank you, Maimuna. Thank you. Ted, please.
But tell me,
Yes.
we changed the way to vote by we use now the electronic vote.
Yes, the electronic votes is exactly for electronic votes, but when we are in a call, then we can vote like this. Yes.
Okay.
So when we are in a call, we have three ways to vote, which is roll call, which is what we are doing now, which usually is when we involve money or important resolutions like this. Otherwise, what we did like 5 minutes ago, that was show of hands. So that's what we do for let's say not so key resolutions. And then the last one is what we did yesterday, acclamation, with something that is completely non-controversial, like accepting new chapters. So those are the three ways we have. Does it make sense, Maimuna? Excellent.
Yes.
Perfect. So Maimuna voted yes, is that right?
Yes.
Excellent. Thank you, Maimuna. So moving on to Ted. Ted, please.
Yes.
Thank you, Ted. Pepper.
Yes.
Heather.
Yes.
Richard.
Yes.
Mike.
Yes.
Laura.
Yes.
John.
Yes.
Walid.
Yes.
George.
Yes.
And Gonzalo, I vote yes as well. So the resolution passes unanimously. And at this point, with the resolution passed, Andrew and I will sign the contract as soon as we can. And for that, Maimuna, we will probably use the DocuSign system that we have in place. We'll see. Ilona will take care of that. Now I understand. Maybe Maimuna was asking about the actual signature, so maybe I was addressing the wrong question. Yeah, but anyway, we need a resolution for that. So I'm not going to sign the contract without the resolution. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Perfect. So moving on, now we have a resolution to ratify, actually, to the point I was making before, to ratify both resolutions that they were approved by e-vote. So as you know, we just changed the way we are basically passing resolutions by electronic voting. And then since, before we were doing it in a different way, we want to ratify all those decisions to make sure that they are valid. I think John has a question about that.
Well, yeah, I mean, this is actually my fault. I designed the previous process, but I did not sufficiently consult with our lawyer at the time. So it turned out that the process was defective. So that the votes that were unanimous were okay. The votes that were not unanimous were legally not binding on us. Okay. However, everything we are reapproving now has been approved by at least 10 trustees. So nothing is contentious. This simply confirms that we already voted for the stuff that we thought we already voted for.
Yeah, thanks for summary, John. I mean, at the point we consulted with external counsel. Nowadays we have in-house counsel, which maybe the review we get is more thorough.
Yeah.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you. So any questions about that? Okay, then I need someone to move.
I might as well move it. It was my fault.
Okay, I don't like this finger pointing thing, but thanks, John. Who seconds? Okay, Richard seconds. Maybe finger pointing is okay if you are pointing to yourself. I don't know. Anyway, we're gonna go roll call again. Maimuna, you can vote yes, abstain, or no.
Yes.
Thank you, Maimuna. Ted. You are muted, Ted.
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Ted. Pepper.
Yes.
Heather. You are muted, Heather.
Yes.
Okay. Yes, you are muted, or yes, you vote yes.
Well, yes, I was muted, and I also vote yes.
Okay,
Thank
thanks. Richard.
Yes.
Mike.
Yes.
Laura.
Yes.
John.
Yes.
Walid.
Yes.
And George.
Yes.
And Gonzalo votes yes. So the resolution passes unanimously. Okay, thank you. Excellent. Good. So moving on, we are in AOB. So do we have any other business to discuss? Okay, so hearing none, then I move to adjourn. Okay, nobody seconds.
Seconded.
Okay, good. So the meeting is closed. Thank you. So now you can stop the recording.